So Mill's goal for this part of the book, the part that we're going to read, is to explain what utilitarianism is and what it's not. To explain what it's not, he's going to have to run up against a bunch of objections, some fairly minor and some fairly major, to show not only that these people don't even really understand what utilitarianism is, but if they did, then they wouldn't claim it was wrong anymore. So here's where he's going to start. First, he's going to tell us a little bit about what utilitarianism is. And he says that utilitarianism needs to use what's called the greatest happiness principle. The principle says this, quote, "Actions are right in proportion as they tend to promote happiness, and wrong as they tend to produce the reverse of happiness," end quote. It's that simple. So the more happiness in the world that an action creates, or is likely to create, or tends to create, the better it is. And the more suffering, or sadness, or unhappiness it creates, the worse it is. That's it. So good actions make the world a happier, better place, and bad actions make it a less happy place. Utilitarianism is really all about happiness, pleasure, and pain. The question is, what counts as pleasure and pain? Because you might think that, oh come on, Mill, you really think that all that matters is making people feel good? Well, he's going to say, no, it's not just the raw sort of bodily sensations, right? It's not just the warm, fuzzy feeling or not being in intense, stabbing, agonizing pain. There's something more going on than this. So you might think, and it's actually been leveled against utilitarianism, that it is, quote, a doctrine worthy of swine. And here's why you might think that. If pleasure is all that matters, then it ends up we have no reason to pursue sort of high, lofty goals, right? If all that matters is pleasure, well, then why are you in a philosophy class, right? You should just be out on the beach, laying in the sun. You should be eating as much good food as you can. You should be, doing whatever just sort of makes you dumb, fat, and happy, right? You shouldn't be sort of pursuing a degree. You shouldn't be doing mental things. You shouldn't care about listening to good classical music or anything like that, right? All you need are sort of the basic bodily pleasures. Well, if that were true, then utilitarianism would indeed be worthy of swine, Mill says, because it would be the best thing of all, would be to just be the sort of happy pig that wallows around in the mud all day. But he says, come on, that's the sort of objection that doesn't give humans enough credit. We know humans are capable of much better than that, and in fact that humans like what's better than that. So you might think, and this seems pretty plausible to me, because I experience this kind of thing, that when you've got a sort of long break, if you've got a long period of time off, this seems great for the first few days, the first maybe even a week or two. And then, you can just sort of sit around, you don't need to do anything, so you do nothing all day, right? You sit around on the couch, you watch some bad TV, you eat lots of good food. But eventually, right, you start to get sort of bored and desperate. And next thing you know, you sort of want to go back to work, or you want to go back to school, or you need something sort of challenging to do. Mill says that this is right, that real happiness involves a kind of fulfillment. And so higher level mental and emotional needs count as much as just physical pleasure. That means that some pleasures count more than others, the sort of high level ones. So how do we figure out which ones are the best? Well, basically what it comes down to is we take a poll of competent people. So if people in general, if everyone prefers pleasure A to pleasure B, A must be better. And if they don't all agree, then we just sort of go with the majority. If they prefer A to even more of B, right, so the first one we're comparing an equal amount. If it ends up that they prefer A, 10 units of A to 20 of B, then A must be a higher good, right? A must actually be way better than B, considerably better than B. So here's a test that Mill proposes. He says, think about it. Would you agree to be made dumber if making dumber would make you happier? So would you agree to turn into a pig, say, or a dog, or a bug, or something, if you knew that you would be really, really happy, but you'd also become much less intelligent than you are? And Mill says that you wouldn't and you shouldn't, because our higher faculties matter, even though being smarter makes you probably less happy, because you can tell when things aren't going well. And Mill has this famous quote. He says, it's better to be Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. We would rather be smart. But there's this question, why do so many people then choose sort of the low, dumb pleasures? Mill says that, well, it's because they've sort of crippled themselves. They've killed off their higher intellectual, better nature, because this is a sort of tender plant that's easy to kill. And so if you don't nurture it, then it dies off. What we need to do is we need to make sure people have this sort of inclination from the start, otherwise they really get in trouble. So we always need to rely on what he calls the competent judge, and we'll run through that and some more objections in our next video.